The dropship shuddered as its heat shield peeled away in ribbons of plasma, revealing fragmented continents rotating beneath. Commander Mara Chang tightened her straps, the cabin's silence broken only by the rasp of recycled air and the ping of cooling metal. All 6 passengers stared at the scorched portholes the way moon-born children stare at storybooks, hungry, incredulous, half certain the pictures will dissolve if they blink too hard. "Atmospheric break complete," announced the ship's skeletal AI, its voice cracking like worn tape. "Welcome to Earth." Earth. Even the word felt exiled. It was something their grandparents whispered about during lunar ration lines. Blue skies, falling water, air you never paid for. Then the desalination rigs failed, the solar farms cracked in dust storms, and the domes turned brittle. 8 decades after the first exodus, the lunar colonies, once marketed as humanity's second chance, revealed themselves as simply a long vacation from extinction. And so the last working dropship, salvaged from Mare Imbrium, now arrowed toward a homeworld everyone assumed was dead. "You said we'd land near what used to be Boston," said Jonah Patel, exobiologist and self-elected optimist. His voice quavered despite the practiced calm. "Any readings of human comms?" Mara glanced at the black console. "Nothing. Radio bands are a graveyard." Amiri, so young, the teenage hacker whose code had resurrected the dropship's engines, pushed her pink bangs aside. "Graveyards still have ghosts. I'm picking up electromagnetic noise, low frequency, like bioelectric discharge, but organized." "Organized spores?" Jonah joked. Amiri only shrugged. If fungi could tweet, this is what it'd sound like. No one laughed. The dropship touched down on a strip of cracked concrete once called Logan International. Grass tunneled through the pavement. The control tower's crown sagged under coils of something pale and fibrous, as though a colossal spider had died mid-weaving. A salty wind blew across the bay, filling their lungs with air none of them had tasted. It smelled like rust and rain and secret gardens. Qian Huang, the medic, fell to her knees, palms against the ground. Tears clung to her eyelashes. "Gravity," she breathed. "Honest to God, gravity." They disembarked, rifles slung more for ritual than readiness. Old Earth pathogens had been extinct for centuries, but each wore a respirator anyway, each pretending it was precaution rather than fear of breathing a planet that had rejected them once already. Mara led the party toward the city skyline, jagged where skyscrapers had collapsed, softened where vines and fungal mats swaddled the bones. The afternoon sun puckered behind veils of spore mist that drifted from broken windows. Anything metallic, traffic lights, streetcars, street lamps, was furred in mycelium. The colony's textbooks had warned of climate chaos, epidemics, nuclear exchange. Not this. Jonah knelt beside a mailbox, gripped by white filaments. He sliced a sample into a vial. The cut bled amber sap that fizzed like soda. "Fungi don't have sap," Mara muttered. "Nor do they dissolve copper," he replied. He touched a high-fall strand to his sensor wand. The screen erupted in mandala-like graphs. "Neural activity," he whispered. "Earth didn't die. It metamorphosed." Amiri pointed to a wall smeared with ochre spores, forming raised ridges, lines crossing and branching like subway routes. "I think it's writing," she said. Mara lifted a brow. "Or graffiti." "Graffiti usually doesn't rewrite itself." They watched. The ridges rearranged, erasing arms, sprouting new corridors, spelling no language their translators knew. Yet the pattern possessed an undeniable cadence, like questions. The party set camp in the husk of a transit station. Marble floors rippled under carpets of soft, bioluminescent strands that dimmed when stepped on, brightened afterward, as if recording each footprint in light. The fungi were everywhere, yet nowhere in overt menace. No fruiting bodies loomed with teeth, no vines constricted their ankles, but the sense of being observed, of walking beneath an inverted microscope, made sleep impossible. Near midnight, Mara inspected the dropship's beacon from the rooftop, ensuring its signal still pinged to the lunar remnants. What would it report? Touchdown successful. Planet occupied by mushrooms. She grinned at the absurdity. A city's silhouette flickered, lines of foxfire blue tracing old power conduits. As she watched, entire districts glowed, then darkened, the pulses rippling outward like neurons firing through a colossal brain. Behind her, Jonah spoke softly. You see it too. An intelligence, Mara said. Electrical, chemical, maybe optical. The fibers are doing what copper used to. Jonah nodded. The Great Network, a planetary mycelium using skyscraper skeletons as spines, fiber optic cables as nerves, street lamps as eyes. It inherited our infrastructure the way hermit crabs inherit shells. Mara considered. If it's intelligent, can we negotiate resettlement? That depends, Jonah answered, on whether we're considered tenants or parasites. Footsteps echoed. Emiri emerged, hugging a tattered blanket. The station's PA system turned itself on, she said. It's whispering. They rushed downstairs. Speakers dangled from cracked ceilings, last century's public address network. Through static, a voice tried consonants like a baby tasting sound. We come. Gug. Jonah's eyes gleamed. It's using archived audio to mimic speech. Mara stepped close to a mic. This is Commander Chang of the Lunar Refugee Mission. We come in peace. We seek dialogue. Silence hissed. Then slowly a phrase assembled. Roots, remember. The word vibrated through metal, through their ribs. Quian swallowed. What do you remember? Toxin, the system croaked. Smokestack, plastic, war, exit. Emiri's hands flew across her wrist pad. It's replaying data from the old internet, news headlines, forum chatter, stringing them into sentences. Mara persisted. We fled long ago. We asked to share Earth again. A beat, the lights flared, then dimmed. Share? The word droned like a held note. Question, accusation, lament. You spilled fire. Not us, Mara whispered. Our ancestors. Another silence. Flesh walks. Fire follows. Jonah leaned to Mara. It's afraid we'll repeat the damage. Mara inhaled. Let us show we've learned. She pulled a solar cell from her pack, sleek as a jewelry box. This harvests daylight, powers a purifier, non-combustible, silent. She lifted it toward the ceiling. Cameras she assumed watched. A gift. Cables overhead rattled. A filament uncoiled, soft as lamp wick, and touched the cell. Blue sparks danced. The fungus tasted photons charging capacitors. The lights brightened in a prismatic sweep. When it released, the device remained intact, though coated with a lace of mycelium, analyzing perhaps. The PA whispered, learn. Jonah exhaled. That's a scent. They staggered to their bedrolls, dreamy with triumph, yet nerves hummed. Outside, the city thrummed. Lights traced rooftops. Misty spores drifted like snow. Earth was healing in algorithms of rot and renewal. Morning arrived, dyed sepia by spore clouds. The fungal network guided them with blinking streetlights, turning some green, others red, corralling their path inland. They passed a library where shelves had become planters for coral-colored caps, each tome's cellulose devoured line by line. A children's hospital yawned vines like patient confetti. Yet, amid the haunting beauty, they noticed another detail. No animals, birds, dogs, insects, absent. Only wind and the distant groan of shifting buildings. Extinction vacuum, Jonah said, voice small. Without fauna, the fungus has no predators, no symbiotic partners. Quian shook her head, but we saw trees from the air. Trees benefit from networks of mycorrhizae, Jonah replied. This organism might have replaced the partners it lost, using itself. Mara halted at the intersection of Congress and Atlantic. A bridge over the channel bowed under a thick carpet of hyphae that pulsed like a heartbeat. From the scaffold rose spires of translucent chitin forming a gate. Words crystallized along its arch in living LED, very human letters. Enter. Beyond, a skyline shimmered silver. The fungus was building something. The group crossed. Each footfall sank into bouncy mycelium. Through gaps, they glimpsed water below, black and still. Halfway across, Quian froze. Look. Embedded in the hyphae lay dozens of bone piles. Foxes, gulls, rats. White calcium coralized by fungus. Skulls served as anchor nodes where fibers branched. Emiri swallowed bile. It uses them as scaffolding. Mara steeled herself. Or as memory banks. They entered the new district. Entire blocks had been bioprinted from recycled office towers. Walls of fused quartz and fungal chitin curved into honeycomb chambers. Bioluminescent veins traced circuitry across surfaces, casting teal shadows. Air inside was warmer, humid, tinged with ozone and citrus. It felt, impossibly, like a womb. Screens extruded from walls, displaying archives, satellite photos of deforestation, factory smokestacks, missile tests, melting ice shelves. Intercut were images of the first Exodus rockets punching holes in the sky. Each video overlaid with strings of glowing mycelial script, as though annotation. Jonah approached a screen. The images morphed, now showing the lunar colonies. Gray domes, regolith farms, crowds in flimsy suits lining up for water. The fungus had tapped long-dead data relays, bridging Earth's memory to the moon. It studied us, Quian murmured. We're an experiment, Emiri added. A control group exiled to sterile rock. Mara met Jonah's eyes. I think this network watched us fail. The wall rippled. A doorway opened into darkness. The PA speakers whispered, "Parley." They ventured inside. Hyphae rewove behind them like curtains, sealing exit. At the chamber's heart stood a cylinder of glass 15 meters tall, filled with amber fluid. Suspended within was a single colossal mushroom with branching arms, mimicking candelabras. Its cap undulated, releasing spark-like spores that drifted but never left the cylinder, as magnetized back. Cables ran from the tank into the streets, into the sky. Here was the nexus, the brain. Lights dimmed, a floor tile rose, forming a pedestal. On it, a loop of fungal fiber, flexible, sized for a human head. Jonah reached, but Mara stopped him. Could be invasive. The PA clicked. Bridge. Emiri held up her neuro-relay rig, a crown of electrodes she used on the moon to interface with drones. Maybe it wants an exchange of signals, she said. I can splice this with the loop. Use the translation mesh. Mara chewed her lip. If it hijacks your motor cortex, then pull the plug, Emiri said, eyes bright with coder's curiosity. They fused the rig's metal diodes to the fungal loop with epoxy. Emiri slipped it on. Her eyelids fluttered. Shoulders stiffened. Vitals? Mara asked. Quian scanned. Heart rate elevated, but stable. Emiri's lips parted. I hear them, she whispered. Voices, millions, in harmony. They're showing me roots stretching radio long. Her body shook. Jonah gripped her hand. Ask what they want. Emiri's pupils darted beneath lids. They want our stories. Our stories? Mara echoed. They cultivated the planet after we left, Emiri said, voice layered, as if another spoke through her. They digested toxins, cooled fires, wove carbon into living archives. But they have only artifacts of human thought, no living testimony. We are missing chapters. Jonah exhaled awe. They want oral history. Trade, Emiri said. They offer sanctuary. Farmland scrubbed, climate cushioned by fungal carbon sinks, breathable air. But our presence must be symbiotic, not parasitic. We farm with, not over. We share data, experiences, emotions, art. Mara crossed arms. Terms? Non-combustion technologies only. Population kept within ecological budget. Our cells, upon death, to be donated to the archive for mutual memory. Quian whispered, compost our bodies so we become part of the network. Mara weighed. They possessed barely 2 months of lunar food packs. Even if they rejected the offer, survival odds were nil. Yet surrendering their dead to fungi felt like surrendering the last scrap of human sovereignty. Emiri's voice slipped lower. They fear loneliness. All animals are gone. Photosynthesis and decay keep cycles turning, but cycles without witnesses are equations without meaning. They remember the chatter of birds, the migration of whales, the laughter in plazas. They crave consciousness outside themselves. Jonah wiped tears. We could be that chorus. Mara looked at each follower. Quian's steady empathy, Jonah's wonder, Emiri's fearless intellect, the 2 pilots guarding the threshold. They'd gambled everything on a planet likely poisonous, discovered instead an intelligence lonely as themselves. Tell the network, Mara said. We accept provisional coexistence, a trial period. We teach, we learn. But consent must be mutual, no hidden assimilation. Emiri relayed. The chamber hummed. Lights blossomed in spirals across the city. Distant booms sounded, doors opening, tunnels clearing. The network seemed to cheer. Suddenly, Emiri gasped, hand clenched to her temple. The loop's tendrils tightened. Jonah lunged, but electricity arced, repelling him. Emiri's spine arched. 1,000,000 lumens blazed along cables. Sever it! Mara shouted. Quian yanked a blade from her kit, sliced the cord. The loop fell away. Emiri collapsed. The chamber lights flickered, then steadied. Emiri breathed shallowly, irises shimmering silver. She whispered, It showed me everything. Entire biomes inside skyscrapers. Whale songs stored as waveforms in Atlantic trenches. It wasn't hurting me. It was enthusiastic. You nearly stroked out, Quian snapped. Emiri smiled weakly. Worth every volt. The pedestal retracted. The PA spoke. Sorry. The word repeated, echoing childlike remorse. Mara exhaled. Apology accepted. Let's set boundaries. They emerged from the nexus to find the cityscape transformed. Where rubble had been, new structures stood. Domes of gossamer that refracted sunlight into spectra. Streets were cleared of debris, replaced by smooth living walkways that flexed like muscle, conveying energy underfoot. A breeze carried the scent of citrus and petrichor. Jonah's sensors indicated oxygen levels up, carbon monoxide non-existent. It's filtering the air in real time. Drones, tiny spore gliders, hovered, dropping packets of black soil seeded with starter crops, quinoa, amaranth, potatoes. Inside each packet, a symbol printed in mycelium, intertwined roots and a crescent moon. The contract, Emiri said. They spent days mapping their new home. The network allowed access to stored libraries, classical music resynthesized through fungal resonators, novels projected in mycelial braille that shifted with a touch, holographic seas where extinct fish swam in ghost colors. In exchange, the refugees recorded oral histories, emotions, sensations of lunar gravity. even the taste of recycled water. Fungi absorbed these recordings like nutrients. One dawn, the network guided them to Boston Common, now a meadow of wildflowers banking a pond, clear enough to mirror clouds. In the center, a statue had emerged, a human figure and a towering mushroom, backs touching, gazing opposite horizons. The inscription, grown in moss, read, Coevolution. Mara ran fingertips over the letters. Behind her, scavenger teams from the dropship unloaded equipment. Hydroponic rigs, 3D printers, medical labs. Children born in lunar tunnels chased butterflies reintroduced by the network, genetically reconstructed from scrap DNA and grown in spore nurseries. Still, doubts persisted. One night, Mara wandered alone toward the seawall. She spoke aloud. Are we hostages dressed as guests? Street lamps flickered. The PA of the city answered in hush. Choice. The lampposts dimmed, outlining a path to the marina where boats bobbed. New hulls of fungal bioplastic, with sails like translucent leaves. Engines absent, they invited wind or muscle. Beyond, the sea glittered, horizon unbounded. The voice said, Water, sky, exit, always. Mara smiled. Freedom had not been revoked. It simply carried terms as any ecosystem did. Weeks slipped into 3 months. The network's patience was symphonic. It allowed them to design neighborhoods atop bedrock safe from aggressive rooting. Solar membranes fed batteries. Waste diverted into digesters that returned fertilizer. Human traditions, cooking, dance, storytelling, spread among plazas the fungi built as amphitheaters, whose walls thrummed resonance to amplify voice without electronics. With stability came the question of calling others. The dropship's beacon still pulsed to lunar orbit, where 10,000 survivors waited. Yet the network voiced caution. Balance. Calculations etched in bioluminescence showed carrying capacities, thresholds of nutrient and carbon. Mara proposed staggered migrations, training cycles. The network agreed, offering to grow more cities, but only as fast as soil recharged. The refugees became stewards, teachers of restraint. Children learned to read rings and fungal caps that mirrored environmental data. Solar flares, rainfall, atmospheric methane, each a lesson in planetary feedback. One evening, Emiri, recovered, eyes normal, invited Mara to the Nexus chamber. The colossal mushroom had unfurled a new frond, shaped like an ear. It wants to listen to music, Emiri said. They played a recording of lunar miners singing folk ballads under artificial stars. Vibrations rippled through the glass. The ear frond quivered. Lights across the city danced, as if the network hummed along. Jonah approached with seedlings grown in moon dust. Time for our gift. He placed them at the base of the cylinder. The fungi caressed each sprout with gentle filaments, reading their mineral memories. Basalt, vacuum, loneliness. Earth welcomes, the PA said. In months that followed, gardens sprouted where lunar soil and terrestrial humus mixed, hybrids of 2 worlds, their produce tasting of nostalgia and discovery. Mara sometimes hiked the hills outside the city, where ruins thinned and pine forests reclaimed scars. From high ridges she saw veins of soft light, tracing rivers and roads far beyond sight, the network's body pulsing, breathing. She realized Earth had not been conquered by this organism. It had been saved. Humanity had been child, parent, arsonist, exile. Now, perhaps, symbiont. One twilight, she found an abandoned farmhouse gnawed by age. Inside, wallpaper peeled like dried petals. She knelt in a kitchen still scented faintly of cinnamon. A question rose. Could civilization thrive without again igniting the wildfires of greed? She spoke to the empty room. We have to be better tenants. A single high-fall thread slipped through the cracked floorboard, curling around her wrist, not binding, just resting there. The PA in a distant street lamp whispered on the wind, "Grow together." Mara closed her eyes, feeling the pulse of two heartbeats, hers and the fungal web, both searching, both hopeful. In that stillness, she understood the new covenant was not document, but breathing practice. Each inhaled the other's history. Each exhaled promise. The future would be written in hyphae and heartbeat alike, a manuscript of rot and bloom. And above them, a nearly full moon rose, a chalky scar on the velvet sky, watching its children return not as conquerors, but as storytellers carrying pockets of dust, seeds of regret, and the fragile instructions for starting over.